Hello and welcome to the clarinet warm-up class. This is a chance for beginners, intermediates, and early advanced clarinetists to get a good quality warm-up because it's super important for all instruments alike to get a good quality warm-up. We're going to do a few things that'll be beneficial for the clarinet, and we'll have some visuals for you along the way. So feel free to get out your clarinet and play along with me as we do this warm-up series. We're first going to start out with some breathing so that we get the air moving. We really want to make sure that when we're playing the clarinet that we use a lot of good relaxed full air as we're doing this. Just a quick disclaimer, I am not a clarinet player, but I am a music educator in the Oregon part of the United States, and I do have experience playing clarinet and learning different techniques to make the clarinet work for me, and hopefully this works for you as well. So feel free again to get out your clarinet and follow along with us. We're going to start out with some breathing exercises, and we're going to breathe in for a couple of different counts, and I've got my metronome here so that we can keep track of the counts. We're first going to breathe in for 4 and out for 4, and we're going to do that about 4 times or so, and then we're going to move it to breathing in for 2 beats and then out for 6 beats, and so on and so forth. I'll kind of guide you along as we do this. While we're doing this, it's a good idea to hold your hand, whichever hand works for you, in the middle of your mouth and with an O shape so that we get a good quality airstream going in. And when we breathe out, we want to put your hand out in front of you, probably about a foot to a foot and a half out in front of you, not totally extended but not close to your face either, so that we can feel our air hitting this part of our hand right here in the middle. Okay, here we go. Metronome is at 80 beats a minute. We're going to go in for 4, out for 4. 1, 2, in for 4 first. Make sure to keep your shoulders relaxed. One more time. In for 2, out for 6. Now we're going to move in for 1, out for 8. One more time. And we're done. If you ever get lightheaded or dizzy at any point during that exercise, feel free to put your head in between your legs if you're sitting down. If you're standing up at all during this exercise and you feel lightheaded or dizzy, please sit down. We don't want you to fall over or pass out while you're doing this. So please feel free to take a seat. And again, put your head in between your legs so that you regain a sense of normalcy and consciousness, and the blood rushes back to your head. Okay, you can do that a number of different ways, breathing exercises. It doesn't have to be just only those ways that I just showed you and just demonstrated for you. But you could do a number of different types of breathing exercises. Right now we're going to take our clarinet, so hopefully you have your clarinet ready. I've got my reed on here ready to go. And we're going to do some long tones, and in between those long tones we're going to also do some breathing as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to breathe in for 4 counts, and then we're going to start on our open G right in the middle of the staff. No fingers unless you want to use the bottom hand to kind of have a stabilizer for you. Again, we're going to breathe in for 4 counts and breathe out on the clarinet playing an open G. After that, we're going to go basically down your C scale from G to F to E to D to C and all the way down until we get to low G down here. Again, breathing in for 4 counts and then breathing out for 8. We're going to do each note 2 times and then move on to the next one. Here we go. Make sure you're sitting up tall if you're sitting. Breathing in for 4 first. Ready, set, breathing in. to F with your thumb key. Breathing in. Moving to E with your first finger and thumb key. Make sure to use steady air. Move down to D, add another finger. Move down to C, add another finger. Make sure you're tapping your foot and breathing. Down to B, second finger in your right hand. Make sure your fingers stay close to the keys. Breathe in for full counts. A. Breathe, 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 breathe. Down to G, next finger in the right hand. Make sure your corners are firm. Fast air. Okay, and we're finished with our long tone exercises. Again, it doesn't need to be only those notes that I just showed you. Those are just a good beginner to intermediate and maybe even early advanced warm-up for you to get your air moving and get those notes responding well. Apologize for the squeak at the beginning. I probably should have made sure that my reed was a little bit more wet. It was a little bit dry to start because I haven't been playing for a couple minutes. Next we're going to do register key jumps, which is basically where our fingers in the front stay the same and then our thumb moves from the thumb key up slightly to the register key to activate the register key. I have a quick diagram that I'd like to show you of the different notes that we're going to be playing with this. So feel free to pause the video at any time so that you can understand what we're going to be doing through this exercise. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start over here on the left-hand side with low E, and all the fingers and all the pinkies are going to be down for this exercise. And then all we're going to do is enable the register key, and we're going to be jumping up to B up there above. I have the lowest note down below and then B when we activate the register key. No other fingers have to change, only the register key changes. And we'll go through all the necessary ones. These are not all of the possibilities, but these are just some great starting notes for beginners or intermediates and even early advanced students to practice with these register key jumps. Basically what we're doing is we're going and trying to go and work towards a consistent, smooth change from the lowest note to the highest note. So make sure that your air is steady throughout the entire exercise. What I usually like to do is I usually like to play the lower note with a little bit stronger air so that I have an easier time jumping up to the next note. Okay, so we're first going to start out with E. Let me hold this in the screen for you so that you can take either a screenshot or with either your phone or your computer, and I'll feel free to leave this up for a couple moments so that you can know what we're going to be doing. Okay, hopefully you had a chance to write these down and mark these down, what we're going to be doing. Again, we're going to play each note on this exercise as a whole note for 4 beats. So we're going to play the low E for 4 beats, and then we're going to enable our register key by moving our thumb up slightly to enable the register key, and we're going to play that B in the middle of the staff for 4 beats as well. So it might look something like this if we started out. that's what we're going for. We're going for a smooth change from one note to the next with smooth, steady airstream. And we're going to have the metronome at, again, 80 beats a minute. So we're going to start on low E. For those people that aren't familiar what low E is, it's all the fingers in your right hand, this pinky in the very middle of the clarinet, and then all the fingers down in the right hand, and then you can also put down the very lowest key so that you're ready for the next note actually, which is going to be F, which we'll need in a second. So you can have this pinky down and this front pinky on the bottom down as well. Okay, here we go. Low E to middle B. 1, 2, breathe. One more time. E. Now we're going to move to F. Just lift up that left hand pinky. Low F to middle C. And 1, 2, breathe. Again, 2, ready, breathe. Now we're going to move on to G. Just lift this pinky. Low G to middle D. 1, 2, breathe. Again, make sure the low note is strong. Now we're going to move to A, which is just lifting up this bottom ring finger. Low A to middle E. And 1, 2, ready, breathe. Again, 2, ready, go. Now we're going to move to low B flat, which is just that first finger in the right hand, and then we're going to go to F on top of the staff. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, breathe. Again, 2, ready, go. Now we're going to move to C, which is just 3 fingers, and then we're going to be jumping up to G on top of the staff. Make sure that you're playing this, your tongue stays a little bit higher in your mouth. We don't want our tongue low, otherwise it sounds like this. It has a very bad sound to it, so make sure your tongue stays high in your mouth and your corners are engaged. 1, 2, ready, go. Again, 2, ready, go. Move on to D, first 2 fingers in the left hand. 1, 2, ready, go. Again, 2, ready, go. Now we're going to go to E in the left hand. It probably gets a little bit higher for some of those beginner and early intermediate players. If it gets too high and it doesn't sound good, that's okay. It's okay to stop, but you can still listen to me and listen to while we play it. Here we go. E, 1, 2, ready, go. Again, 2, ready, go. Now we're going to finish off with F, which is just the thumb key, and we're only doing thumb key and then register key for the high C. 1, 2, firm corners, go. Again, 2, ready, go. Great. Great. That was our long tone exercises for the register key jumps. Those are going to be super important for the clarinet so that you practice getting over what's called the break. We don't really like to talk about it too much because it's not, people think it's more difficult than it is, but if you practice those register key jumps, you should have an okay time doing the register key jumps. Okay, you can also do those with some articulations. So you could use some articulations down low like this. You can do smooth quarter notes like that, or you can do any different kind of rhythm pattern that works for you and you decide that you would like to do. Next thing what we're going to move on to is we're going to move on to some scales. Scales are super important for your warm-up so that you get your fingers moving, but also learn some different scales if you're unfamiliar with some. So I've got a few that are here on my whiteboard. Feel free to pause the video again and to copy down these exercises for you, and we'll get started in a moment. Here they are. Let me make sure it's on the screen for you. There we go. Again, these are not the only scales that you can do. Obviously, early advanced or more advanced students, feel free to do all your 12 major scales if you know them, and even some minor scales if you know them, and do them in multiple octaves. For right now, since this is more geared towards beginners and also early advanced and intermediate students, we're just going to do these 4 scales for right now. And we're also going to do mostly the lower octaves for each of these so that we get the beginners and the intermediate students feeling successful on these scales. If you're an advanced student or even a really good intermediate student, feel free to put these scales in different octaves. If we're going to start off with the F scale, which is the low F scale, feel free to start on your thumb key F and then go up to F on top of the staff if you wish to do so while we're playing. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to play a half note for each note. We're going to go up. Let's not repeat the top note and then come right back down. Feel free to take a breath when you need to. Again, we're going to start on low F, which has that bottom thumb key in the front. Okay, the only really note that you want to worry about is make sure that when we get to F, G, A, B flat, it's just our B flat first finger there. And as we do these scales, I'll kind of go over some notes so that you follow along with us and so that you're able to be successful this whole time. Okay, here we go. We're going to move our metronome down a little bit to 74 beats a minute just so we can get smooth airstream throughout and get the notes successful. Here we go, half notes for each note. 1, 2, ready, go. Again, once we're doing these scales, you want to make sure that you have a steady airstream throughout. Whenever you need to take a breath, don't feel like you have to rush the breathing. Feel like you have plenty of time to breathe. Take a relaxed breath like we did at the very beginning of this warm-up session. Okay, again, you can repeat that scale however many times, but just for the sake of the video, we're going to move on to the next scale. Our next scale is our G scale. So our G scale is going to basically start in that same register, except you just raise that pinky up. A couple notes to think about here. When we're playing the scale, we're going to go from G to A to B, which is going to be our second finger in our right hand, instead of our B flat. I know some of my beginners might be tempted to play B flat here instead, but we actually want to play B. If you want to, it's totally up to you. You can use the alternate fingering for B. It doesn't really help too much in this scale. It's mostly for a chromatic fingering, but feel free to use that alternate fingering for B, which is the first key and then this slight middle key here. That'll be your alternate fingering for B, if you so choose to want to use that fingering. Other than that, use the second finger. After we go on from B, then we're going to go to C, D, E. Now here's a different note for some of you beginners. We're going to use F sharp, which is just your first finger and no thumb in the back. That's going to be F sharp right before we go back to G. Okay, let's give it a try. Metronome's at the same marking. Again, if you're a more advanced student, feel free to play, start in the middle, G in the middle of the staff, and go up to G on top of the staff. Or if you're a really advanced player, feel free to start on G on top of the staff and go up to high G with 4 ledger lines above the staff, if that's where you're at. Here we go. G scale. 1, 2, big breath. Good, and again, once you're doing that scale, feel free to repeat the video so that you can practice that however many times. I usually like to practice these scales probably about at least 2, if not 3 times at the most. I usually like to think of like a lucky 3 type thing. Usually it works for me. Advanced students and intermediate students, we can also do different articulation patterns while we're doing these scales. Maybe add some 8th notes or 16th notes in there. And so on and so forth, maybe some 16th note patterns. And so on and so forth. For right now, we're just going to keep going on with half notes to really work on smooth airstream and good quality sound as we go along. Next scale is going to be our B flat scale. B flat scale, yes, you heard it, starts on B flat, low B flat here, and goes all the way up to B flat in the middle of the staff with our A key in front and then our register key in the back for B flat. There's not too many difficult notes here. You want to be careful of the E flat. When we get to E, it's going to be E flat, and I usually recommend playing E flat with D key 1 and 2 and the thumb, and then the bottom side key here. Again, pardon my terminology. I do not know. I'm not familiar with all the keys of the clarinet and what they're called, but I just call it side key here in your right hand. That'll be E flat. So here's the notes: B flat, C, D, E flat with the side key here. Make sure to not use your pointer finger. Make sure to use the side of your finger near the first knuckle or the second knuckle here. After E flat, then we go to F, then G, then A, then B flat, and then all the way back down. Again, if you're a more experienced player, start B flat in the staff and go up to B flat on top of the staff. Here we go. Half notes for each note. 1, 2, ready. Again, breathe when you need to. Sometimes I like to challenge myself and go more notes than I think I can on one breath. And then every now and then, each time you do this warm-up, you can challenge yourself to go maybe another note or farther. Okay, and our final scale for the warm-up session scales portion is going to be our C scale. This is the part where we're going to have to use our register key in the back. And also do what we did from the register key jumps. Okay, so all these notes are pretty simple. It's all regular notes, all natural notes. We start with C, then go to D, then E, then F, then G, then A, then B natural, which is going to be like low E like we did in the register key jumps. Our register key in the back, and all our fingers and pinky here. It's going to be important to use this bottom pinky so that you go to C right after. So this is B with my register key here, and then from B you go to C, which is just lifting that left hand pinky, excuse me. Okay, you want to make sure that your air stays smooth, especially when you go from A to using all these keys here. If you find that you're squeaking, that's probably because some of these keys in these fingers down here, and maybe even some of these up here, are not sealing the tone hole completely. So that's why you might squeak. So if you experience that when you go to B with all these fingers and the register key, if you squeak, that's probably a reason why. Or it could be that your reed is too soft. Maybe you're on a 2 reed and you could need to be on a 2.5, or a 2.5 to a 3, or something like that. So be aware of that. If you're squeaking, it's probably not something that you're doing. It's just something that, those easy things that can be changed. Most of the time my students have this bottom ring finger here too high up, too close to each other. So kind of be aware of that while we're doing this. Okay? Again, if you're an advanced player, feel free to play the upper octave of this scale if that works for you. Let's get started. Here we go, C scale, starting on C right here. 1, 2, ready. Okay, and that concludes our scale portion. Again, for any of these scales, feel free to go back and hit the replay button, or go back to certain parts in the video so that you can practice these scales probably 2 or 3 times. And again, these are not the only options for scales. You've got plenty of other options. These were just 4 that we did, and there's 12 well, I guess technically 8 other of these scales that you can do to add in all your major scales. Every note that we start on has a scale of its own, so it doesn't matter what note you start on, it will have a scale to it. So again, that's just a good starting place. Once you improve, and as you improve and increase your skill level, feel free to try more scales. Usually you can find these scales in the back of your band book, or if you use a band book, or there's plenty of resources online. So feel free to check out the Timber Ridge music page. I'll leave a description down here and below so that you can go to the resources tab. The resources tab has a bunch of different clarinet resources for you to use. And not only for those, but I have a couple of different apps that I use that I definitely like. The one that I've been using for my metronome is TE Tuner. It has not only a tuning app and a sound drone app part of it, but it also has this metronome here. Another app that I really like to use is called Playtunes. Playtunes has a bunch of different exercises for you to use. Here, I'll show you a little preview, and you can see all the other apps that I have on my phone here. Playtunes looks like this guy right here. It's got kind of a fancy 8th note here. Once you push on that, once you push on that, it'll bring you to this page, and you can have a bunch of different options to do different levels and different days and activities and such. If you're not sure how to get to the correct instrument, you just go back to the home screen right here, and then you push on the settings button. Then at the settings, it'll say something like current instrument, and then you click on that, and you would just click change, and then you search for clarinet, and it'll have a bunch of different exercises for you, and then go back to play, and then it'll have all the exercises for clarinet. So that's going to be a great one for beginners and intermediate players. Usually advanced students have their own material from either their private lessons or just things that they found that they like also. So feel free to use that material as well. Another app that I really like to use for a tuning app, but also for beginners to know if they're playing the right note or what they're doing, is Bandmate Chromatic Tuner. That guy that has like a little quarter note on the staff there. If you push that guy, it opens up to this page here. Let me see if I can move it. There you go. And it basically has your tuning down here, and it shows what notes you're playing. The only downside is that you have to switch between flat notes and sharp notes. So if you're playing primarily sharp notes, you want to hit this button and it'll move down to sharp notes, and vice versa. Okay, So I really enjoy this app because it shows what note you're playing and it shows if it's in tune or not. And you can change the instrument up here if you're a clarinet player that also plays saxophone and things like that. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section down below. If you like this video and like this warm-up series, feel free to give it a like and subscribe to my channel, which has a bunch of other different warm-up series for all these different instruments and different maintenance videos for you to kind of check out. That's all for this warm-up section. Please, again, this is only your the first part of the warm-up series. This should just get your day going. This should not be all that you would play in a day. This should be just a warm-up series, and then take a little break, maybe 15, 20, 30 minutes, and then go and practice something out of your, say, band book or any sheet music that you might have or any etudes that you might be working on in your private lessons or with your own teacher. At least for my students, when you're using these books, the register key jumps can be found in your Essential Elements book. And it's found on page, it starts on page 24, and it starts on number 119. It gives you some register key jumps here. So at least for my students that are beginners and early intermediate students, feel free to use that as a resource and keep practicing that. Again, if you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. Happy practicing, stay well, and we'll catch you on the next video.